So, you want to own a website. Maybe you realize that websites are pretty cool. Or maybe you want to shield yourself to the degree that you can from the faceless corporate AI social hellscape. You may have heard of a concept called the indieweb. The main idea behind the indieweb is owning your content and being the master of how it's used, rather than having your work at the whims of one or more psychotic fascist billionaires. The main thing you need to do that is a website, which is what this video is all about. I'm going to show you how to use one of the easiest and most powerful programs for building websites that requires very low configuration and customization and get working as you'd like. This will get you on the first two steps of the indieweb setup to give you an offline only build that you can install on NeoCities or another static host. So let's get started. The first thing we have to do is install Eleventy, which is the core of our program. I will be using a JavaScript packager, etc. called Bun. You can use npm or something else if you're a weirdo. And we will first install Eleventy by saying bun install develop Eleventy / Eleventy. And now we're installed. Next, we'll set up scripts to make sure that we can actually run the thing easily. So go into our package JSON that was installed when we or added whenever we installed the package from Bun, and we can add a scripts, and we will add one that is called build. And it's just going to run Eleventy. We'll get one that is called dev, and it's going to run Eleventy serve. And this runs the development server, which does all kinds of cool stuff, which we will be seeing shortly. So let's make sure this works. We will go ahead and create a test file here. We'll just call this test.md. And we'll say hello from Eleventy. Oh, save. Alright, you can see here that up here there was a little new thing generated, which generates a file, index.html at /_site/test index.html. If we take a look at that file, we only have one thing, which is a paragraph, which was converted from Markdown. This is a paragraph in Markdown, and it converted it to HTML. So it's working. If we additionally want to, while we're working on this site, we can run this build dev. So if I go here and run bun, run dev, this will run a server locally, and if I visit this in a web browser, I can see this update live. Go ahead and click on it, and we'll actually get one started here. Alright, now I've brought up a web browser, and you can see that I don't see anything, but as you remember, this is installed in the subdirectory, so I can say test / I can just say /test. Alright, and there's my site. So now it's running here in the browser. I'll probably leave this up until we need to do more stuff with it. Alright, so next we don't need this file anymore. We'll go ahead and remove it, delete, and we will create, let's just say, a personal site. I'm going to create a blog. So we can create a new folder here, and we'll just call it blog. And also I'm going to create another little piece of content in a few minutes called photo gallery. So we'll just call this gallery for now. And then inside a blog, I want to create a couple pieces of content. I'll just call this one .markdown, and I'll create a second piece of content here, which is 2.markdown, and this is hello, I'm article 1. We won't talk extensively about Markdown, but what it is, it's a language that translates very easily into HTML. So it's a way to write HTML with very little actual code. So it's very nice for actually writing things like articles that you keep on your own. So we'll just say like article 1. That's a heading 1 is what that means. I'll just say hello, I'm article 1, sure. And save it, and then articles 2, and hi, I'm article 2. Alright. So we got some blog articles. We'll just pretend they'll say something for real. Alright, I went ahead and dragged a couple of random pictures in here. You can just see it's random stuff, no big deal. Into this folder gallery, we'll go ahead and also create an index.markdown here. It's a link to a picture. It works like this. You say exclamation point, and then you give the alt text, which is bridge, let's just say in this case, and then we say ie_1.jpg. Alright, that's really all there is to it. If we then go over to the actual site, and we would expect this a gallery, we can see this here. You notice that it always generates index.html files. It's trying to generate clean URL structure for you here. But this is a gallery, so if we went to /gallery, we see the images doesn't work. Well, that's really strange. Well, there's no graphic in the folder. That's because we've now hit the first point where Eleventy doesn't really understand what a thing is, which is an image. It doesn't process images by default. So we're going to do a very simple solution for this, which is to create a static pass-through. To create a static pass-through, that's something you're going to want to set up in your Eleventy configuration file. So we're going to create that real quick. We'll go ahead here in the main directory and say new file, and this has a special name, which is 11ty.config.js. Real quickly also, before we move on, let's go ahead and set up the node project to prefer the module type, so we can use the new syntax. Oh, whoops. It's called module. Alright. And now we will use the new style exports. So, this is real simple to get started with. You just say export default function, and generally you can call this whatever you want, but generally it's called 11ty config, and then that is the return value. Additionally, you may need this later, so I'm going to go ahead and make it. This is a different configuration variable, which is for 11ty itself. We will use for a couple different things, but mostly will be up here. So the first thing we'll do, add pass-through copy is a function that actually ships with the program. So we just say add pass-through copy, and in this case we are just going to make it ****.jpg. The next thing we need to do is actually close down our dev server, which is done by Control-C. We'll restart it because we need to feed it this new configuration. Now, if you save this, you can see that there's some changes here. You can see that it can understand that the 11ty config changed, and then it also copied all these gallery images. So now if we go back to our web server, you can see it automatically refreshed, which was one of the features. When it sees changes, it can automatically refresh. And yeah, we're rolling with these images. Alright, I went ahead and add the rest of these. So real quick, let's just say I don't really like this being called gallery. Let's rename this here to photos. Yeah. Did it pick it up? Let's see. If we save something, it'll pick up. Yeah, I was like, a lot of times you have to restart the server when you do something like that. So yeah, now it should be working. Let's just see here. Oh, gallery is still working. And photos is still working. Why is that? Let's take a look at site. Well, it's because when we changed this to photos, it did not actually delete gallery. So we're going to add in a piece of functionality here to make sure this is all cleaned up every time Eleventy runs. I'm going to go in here and install another package. This time it's called Del, and this is a deletion package for Node.js. We can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. But what we're going to do is make sure that every time this build runs that it cleans out this directory so we don't have any old stuff to confuse us of what's being produced by the program. Getting this to run is very, very simple. We just need to import it. So at the beginning, which is where you always have to write imports, we say import delete sync. And this is a synchronous package. In this case, we want to make sure all the deletions are complete before we move on to any rendering steps. And then you just say from del if we've installed it correctly. And then in the Eleventy config, we have to make sure this runs every time. We will call delete sync, and then we will get rid of site. And then we also just, let me save you a headache. We want to make sure the dot files are also removed. Then we'll go ahead and save that. You can see whenever we run the server again, that that directory is now cleaned up, and it's just the stuff left over that we actually want. Before we move on, we need to really talk about one of the main things that you're really going to be generating sites from, which is data in general. Eleventy has this concept called the data cascade, and basically what this means is data sort of lives the best place it can, like as close to the content as it is useful, but as far away from the content as you can generalize. And Eleventy has a very, very easy way to handle data inside templates if you stick with this data cascade. There is a very specific order in which priority is assigned. So basically the stuff in 7 is assigned first. At the end, when you have a template, you have a single global data object that you can write template data from. One of the main areas here that you see that happen is front matter data here. Front matter data is a big concept in Eleventy, and anytime you create a template or a document that you want to kind of do something else with, most of the time you're going to do that through front matter, which is just a little YAML piece you stick before the document to give it some information that flows up to the data cascade. In our case, because we're going to demonstrate some good usages of front matter later, I'm going to go back and create a sample title and a sample date in my blog articles that I created earlier. And as you can see here, I've made those changes. I've added title as a meta definition up here and a date definition up here. So you can use these on any of the various templates that Eleventy supports, and we will. So one of the next things, if we talk about the data cascade, that you need to understand a little bit about is these data files. So there's different places data files can live. We'll take a look real quick at a common application that you might use a data file for, which is kind of keeping a list of social links. Inside of the Eleventy folder, I'm going to create a new folder at the root called _data, and this is a special folder that Eleventy uses to load global data. So this is the lowest priority data, but very, very, very useful for things where you need to access it from any template, because as they are, they said they're global, they're globally available. So we'll do this real quick. Common type of structure in general. This is a JSON file, so there's no need to export. You can also use a JavaScript file that is specially set up if you need to do some complex work, I guess. But this is generally the way I like to do it if I'm just writing something simple. So we would, I think in this case, what's a good structure for a list of links? We want an iterable, so we'll create an array. And this will just be an array of objects. We'll just create 3 samples to get started. All right, and a bit of magic later and it's done. To consume this, let's go ahead and create a file at the root here, an actual home page, as it were. We'll keep this in Markdown for now. And I'm not going to worry about front matter yet because it doesn't really matter for this page. But we will say home from the home page. And we'll go ahead and consume this content quickly. All right, and Markdown, this is kind of a little known feature. If you haven't noticed here as it's been processed, it's showing that this is from Markdown. It's being processed as Liquid. Liquid is a template language that's developed by Shopify. It's very simple but very secure, and you can actually write Liquid tags directly in Markdown. I don't necessarily recommend this, but I am going to show it to you because it gives you a little bit of a good idea about the versatility of this system. So Liquid tags are defined this way, and then we'll just say for link in social, and then you have to close the loop in this way in for, and this is kind of what they all look like. If you do an if statement, then you have to do an end if. And we will make a piece of Markdown here. We'll just make a list item and say, what would this be? Link dot title, and the URL is going to be link dot URL, I believe. All right, let's see how this works. There we go. So yeah, you can see that it's a very easy way to consume this data creatively globally, and this will work with any template. So yeah, this is cool stuff, and we have the beginnings of kind of, you see the possibly expanding power here of this system. We don't want to write a bunch of Liquid templates in Markdown. I would recommend using a template project called the WebC. This is a first class JavaScript component system that exists in Eleventy as a first-party plugin. I'm sure will be shipped with Eleventy sooner than later. Really easy to get working with. So we're going to use this instead of using Liquid templates. So let's go ahead and install that. Installing this plugin is quite simple. It is also from the first party namespace. So we just say at Eleventy, and it is called, if I recall, Eleventy-plugin-webc. Alright, so now this is installed. So to set this up, we have to load it into our config. So we first need to import it. We say import, we spell that correctly first, and then we say import plugin webc from Eleventy plugin webc. Yes, correct. All right. And then to add that, we say Eleventy config plugin webc. And I am real quick going to show you one piece. Oh, sorry, I did that wrong. It's Eleventy config.add plugin, so that's the method, and then we pass the plugin to it. I am going to pass one piece of configuration that I will explain later, but we'll go ahead and install now, which is components. And I'm going to go ahead and just include the default directory that I like to use here, and which is webc. So this will load anything in the components directory that is webc. The purpose of this is later on when you get to working with components, you can use them from any template without having to import them if you declare them in one of these statements. All right, now that we have a full-scale template system set up, if we go back and take a look at these HTML pages that we're generating, you can see there's really no HTML page here, right? We have the HTML, the thing we created, but really when you're creating a website, like where's the rest of the website? Where's the head? Where's the body? We do that with something called layouts. And we'll create kind of the first base layout by creating a new root directory, and this is something I just referenced, which is called includes. And includes is like data underscore data, a special directory that does special things in Eleventy. In here I'm going to create a file. I'll just call it root.webc, and this is essentially just a webc kind of, just to get started, is just HTML. So you write HTML in a webc component. All right, so we'll do that. Write that file first. I believe there's a little skeleton of from Emmet for a thing. We'll delete title for now for reasons I will not explain. And yeah, so this is the basis of an HTML page. The way then you consume this is you have to tell your templates that you are using this layout. So to show you here, we'll do that on index.mb because I believe that's what we have loaded at the moment. We will go ahead and add in a piece of front matter 3 that is layout, and it's expecting these to be in the includes directory unless you reconfigure it. So we can just give it the name of the file, which is root.webc. Oh, we have to run our dev server again. All right. Alright, so to use that layout, we have to add that into front matter and tell it to use a layout. So we just go to there and we say root.webc. It's expecting that to be in the includes directory. You can see here that, well, we have nothing. What did we generate here? Let's go back and look at these pages. So it's just like this is the one we changed. We just generated the layout. So one of the things you do is when you're using templates and you're using inheritance is you have to tell parent template where to render the content from the child. There's a couple different ways to do this. The way I like to use it is I like to do this in a template element. The reason why is if you don't do this right, it won't render into the document. Template is set to not display in the DOM by default. We use a Eleventy directive that I will talk about a little bit later, but what this means is to render the raw contents of the child template, assuming it's already basically been rendered and you just put it in here. So we will make that a special directive called content, and then also because again, like we said earlier, template will not be displayed in the DOM. I want to get rid of template, so I tell it webc no keep. And if we go back to the file, you can see that yes, it's rendering now. Let's go check out the page here, and you can see that the child content is now rendered inside of the parent template. So we have kind of a full-scale website at this point. So we could actually run webc from inside of a markdown file by passing a plugin called render. I think it's called render template, but that's kind of a hacky way to do stuff. So for these pages that really templates or require a little more actual control, we would never really do these as markdown anyway. We're going to go ahead and rename this to index.webc. And this is not going to work anymore because webc is not parsed for liquid. So you can see here, and you can see the compiler as well does not say that it's running liquid, so it just spits this out like plain text. So these are no good here anymore. I will go ahead and convert the rest of this as well, and this has to be written slightly differently. So this is the first piece of webc logic you're going to get a chance to see. Alright, we'll do that by typing out a little Eleventy component here, or not even a component so much as just a thing. So we'll make this again. We have to write all our HTML, so let's not get carried away with the the stuff here. So the way Eleventy works essentially is when you're on a tag, you can pass in what are known as, if I remember the name correctly, with directives. Yeah, so directives and props are the two things. So directives basically are instructions to webc to do something. This is the way you do loops. So you have a command here called webc4. If you see these little auto-completes, there's a nice webc package on the Visual Studio Code the plugins repository that I will link to in the video. But we simply just, we know this is globally loaded, so we can just call this social. And we have to iterate over it, so we call it, let's just say link of social. And then inside of this link, we're going to want href. If we need to do something dynamically, we need to set it. So in this case, we're setting it from a JavaScript variable. We would say link.url. So we preface it with a colon. That's the way that it knows that it's dynamic and not static. And then I'm also going to use one of these. This is the way you would insert something into an element, into an element's body in this case. And we will insert as plain text and call it link.title, I believe is the name here. And let's see if this works. Yeah, so we're back to having this work again. We can get rid of this old code. Alright, next, let's go back and use some Eleventy functionality to really spruce up this blog data. So one of the things that's really useful when you're working with collections of things is this tags functionality. This automatically adds things to a collection of a specific tag name that you can call and iterate over or query. So in this case, we will call this, I don't even know, let's just say movie. And we can say, I like movie, I saw it today. So this will be a movie article, and this is food good, exclamation point. That deserves an exclamation point. We'll go ahead and add this to tags food. And one cool thing really, we didn't kind of go into the details of the data cascade, but if you have a situation where you can pass a bunch of multiple objects into a attribute, so if you have an array, you can actually do something like this, which is a thing I use heavily. So we'll create a data file in here. We'll call this blog.json, and we will go ahead in here and say layout is root.webc, so they're all going to use the same layout. And I again forget, I haven't been writing a lot of JSON. I again forget, got to quote everything. And then we'll also say the tags are is feed. So everything will be assigned the feed tag. So when I go back here, you will see that the final of number 1 here will have both the movie and feed tag. And it's probably worth just taking a minute actually here to show you a useful step, this template inheritance. So I'll go ahead and create a new file here, and I'll just call it blog.webc. And I want blog to be the template we're going to use for all these blog articles. And it will in turn call root.webc, and we will install in here a little piece to, so the first thing we'll do is we need to get that template again. The parent template needs a place to install something. We're going to go ahead and change that blog.json from root.webc to blog.webc, and just to ensure that this is working, I'm just going to say hi blog. And then we go to one of these articles here, in which case I know the URL, right? We'll do a less contrived version. So I have this here. I like movie, I saw it today. Root .webc, and did I change? I changed blog.json to use blog.webc. Okay, why am I not seeing this? And of course, because I am very smart, I remember that I'm writing JSON and I need to quote this. So let's go back, try that again. Hi from blog. Yeah, so sometimes when you do things like this, like you actually change the hierarchy, you have shut down the dev server and restart. It's not perfect, right? It can't interpret every change, so you have to be a little bit careful about that. So now this is working and it's inheriting the template. Just to be sure here, we'll go take a quick look at site. And we can see that the articles in blog should render all the stuff. Yeah, so this is looking great so far. So then we'll go ahead and add an attribute here by default to render the title. And you can see that this will now render the title of that is in the front matter of these blogs. And we got it in here because we wanted to see the tags and make sure everything was out correctly. We'll go ahead and insert an article here, and no reason not to have this in kind of a good HTML setup here. So there we start. We'll put a footer in this and say that the tags. All right, and just a demo for you, the data inheritance. We'll go ahead and write a little custom tag here. I don't like to use div and span, so I always write a little custom tag, which involves a hyphen. So the way we do this is the scope of a post data is already present. We can just say webc4 tag of tags, and then we say the text is a tag. You can see that it wrote feed movie in here. So it's given me, if I go back to blog 1 here, you can see it's included both movie, which I've only included in the post, and then feed, which I've included generally. Alright, so now that we have everything sorted into collections and that's all working great, let's take a look at how to operate on those collections by creating our first component. So I'm going to create a file here. We'll call it let's take caps off there. Let's call it collection list.webc. All right, and collection list is basically going to consist of the code that we created here. We have to change it a little bit because the structure of collections is slightly different. I don't want to have to go through all that with you, but essentially all of the data stuff is stored in data. So title is there specifically. That's one thing we're going to have to change about this collection list. Alright, so we make this generic. Let's call this a list instead of social to make this more straightforward. And then the way you call this is, generally speaking, you want to keep your component name and your element name the same. You can name these manually. I'm not going to cover that, but it's not really worth it. You just keep your name the same. It's a lot easier. So then you would say you need to pass it that list, so that's dynamic, and you would pass it, collections.feed. Then, so right now, just to show you, I'm going to save here and we'll go look. It still doesn't render. The reason why is because it doesn't know what collection list is. So we have to import this component. This is the most straightforward way without any other configuration. So we say webc import and we have to give it the full path. This is includes / collections list .webc. All right, this should work. Yeah, so there it works. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. If you remember at the very beginning, we went and set up this, which is to say components are in this directory. So we don't have to do that for our own local components, although there is some upside to using that in general. If you want to import something from the web, or you want to import like an npm package that has a webc component, you can import it in that way. It's actually a pretty sophisticated remote import system, but that's not our case. So we're just going to include it in this directory. So we will make the folders components, and I'm not 100% sure if this is a restart scenario, but I'm going to assume it is. We'll move that. Yeah, see, I think it's choking. So we will put that here, and then to see if this works or not, we'll go ahead and remove the import to see if this thing actually functions. So we will go ahead and run the dev and refresh, and yeah, works great. So that's really all there is to the beginnings of components. So anytime you're operating something, you can kind of make a call out for it. Like here's something I could potentially do, because I know that this is set up in the same way. We'll try this real quick. Collection list, and then this list will be social. And we'll just we'll delete that for now. And we see here that can't check the dynamic attribute link that data.title. Okay, right, because we structured ours slightly differently. So what we could do here is we could go into this component and say link.title. And I think this worked for both, unless I'm mistaken about my logic. Yeah. So, yeah, that works. So with a clever, that's one thing to consider too. Like there's with some of these default structures, like can you actually make 11ty's default structures? Can you make your stuff friendly with that? So yeah, that's a good example. All right, so before we move on and take a look at some other technologies, let's take a closer look at the webc documentation just to see kind of everything we can do. We won't go through everything, but we'll just go through the big stuff. So we already discussed webc keep. It determines whether the host component is kept around or not. Honestly, like this is not something you have to worry about too much. Just try the default behavior, and if you find there's problems with that, you can always change it. Additionally, it's involved if you do slots sometimes, or if you want to opt out of asset bundling. This is the biggest use that I have for it, aside from in template files. Similar, no keep, you can make sure that it drops the tag if you need it to drop the tag. Default behavior is different in some cases. It makes sense when you understand what you're trying to do, but we'll talk about in the future. We already talked about import. Here's an example of importing a webc component remotely from npm. Webc if, so this is if statements. You have an else if and else as well. Similar. You kind of already know what that does. Webc for, we've been looking up iterables. You also can iterate over objects by using the in. And that's another way you can do stuff. You can nest these, but the scope is limited, so try not to get crazy with for loops. You may be kind of doing the wrong thing if you're doing that a lot in any app, I think, but especially a template. Don't get crazy. And then in slots, so if you are doing a web component, a slot is basically a place where you can send HTML into the component. So in this case, they've just created a component with a slot in it. Anything inside of the element then falls into that default slot and is rendered. You can also name them. So if you have multiple or you want to name them something specific, you can do that. It also gets in a little bit to WebC root. You can read that on your own. That's useful, but and definitely needed sometimes, but it's not super common. I haven't used it very often. Nesting, this is same thing. Basically what you're saying is this is the root of the component instead of the outside part. There's a couple of reasons you might want to do that. And then props, we talked about props, so those are basically special directives. A lot of these are shortcuts actually to longer directives. So if you're asking like, well, what's special? Why are these special? They're actually not. I think there's longhand ways to write these as well. But a prop is basically set up like this. Text is one that's already set up. You can render into the component. Dynamic attributes, as we said, you have to prefix it with a colon so it knows you're putting JavaScript in there. And then add attributes, you can basically render a whole set of attributes onto the node. So if you have to render, essentially if you have to affect the host from the child, that's a way you can do that. Pass it up the hierarchy. HTML prop is the same as text except for HTML. Raw is very similar to that, and basically it's WebC. This is the way you can actually write it, WebC raw HTML. So it's always, there's actually long ways to write it. Text, and then WebC is. So this is what I was talking about earlier. You can write something is a component. You don't have to use the component shorthand. Scoped, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And yeah, that's kind of it. So I want to show you one thing here, WebC setup. This is one we're going to take a look at real quick, and I will show you how it applies. So let's go to an article. Let's make a date function to kind of show the dates here. So we'll make a paragraph, and we will insert in that paragraph the date string. I'm going to look it up because it's been a while. So datetime is something we are going to assign, so we will give that a colon, and then the other thing we're going to need to worry about is text, and that is going to equal something that we're going to set up here. So this is how you do this for components. So I say script, and then I say WebC setup. So what this is basically saying, hey, this is a private piece of JavaScript that we can run to set up data for itself. And anything that is available in one of these is going to be available to the data hierarchy as well. So let me show you just like a really quick usage of this that I do almost every time I'm doing a blog. So the date strings are in a nice format for data, but they're not really good to look at. So I usually create the ISO date string, which is required for micro formats. That is located at page.date. And then we're going to need to make it to ISO string. Yeah, so that makes an ISO string. And then additionally, we're going to want to use a display date. So I'll just show you the manual way to set this up, as I don't know if we can import looks on class. It's not necessary anyway, you can do it longhand. To locale string, so this is the other big function. Then we'll say enus. You can make this localizable too. There's ways to do localization. We will not cover that. And then day is numeric. All right. So then what I'll do is I'll come down here at the datetime, and I will say the datetime is the ISO date string, and the text is the display date. Boom. All right. So there you go. So now I have a friendly element here, and as you can see, it does have the correct date time. localized to the ISO format. So yeah, really, really cool that this is working here. All right, next let's start talking about styles and scripts. So this is the last kind of major piece of the documentation in here that we're going to talk about. So this is CSS.js. You use it in the components. By default, it is in bundler mode, which means it's basically going to pass it up and kind of grab everything CSS and JS related for you. So to show you how this works, let's go into first of all our component. So we will go into the collection list. We will type style and we'll just say background is green. Oh wait, what am I doing? UL here. Let's act like I've written a piece of CSS before. Here we go. All right. So let's go to the main thing now. All right, you can see here, it doesn't look like it's working. Why isn't it working? Well, first of all, if we go back to our documentation, it's passing it up in bundler mode. So what's the easiest way to get rid of bundle and make sure it's not bundled up is to say whoopsie keep. So yeah, we do that and we see that we have this. Okay, so I don't really want to render this in here, because if you come look at this, like what you already know what this is doing, right? It's putting the collection list, so it's putting UL. It just has a definition here, and you can see that is passing it directly into the page. Okay, so we don't really want to do that. You don't want to have 50,000 style blocks. I don't know if there's anything wrong with it. It feels dirty. Makes it hard to figure out what's going on with your code. So we really do want to bundle this. So we'll get rid of it. You can see it's trying to bundle it. Okay, well, what's it bundled to? So we need to set that up real quick. So we will go back to root.webc. And I am going to add into the head, I'll just paste this in, a call called getBundle. So this is a function that comes with Eleventy. Of course, got to keep it so it's not trying to still bundle it, and then I'll save this. You can see that now the code is showing up. Just to show you that this actually is working, I will delete that, and you can see that it isn't. Let's move this. I don't mind having head CSS. In fact, there's good reasons to have stuff in the head, but we'll go ahead and set that after the body. We're trying to keep it simple here. So now let's take a look at what is actually going on here with the bundling. So in this page, you can see that it's passing one definition up here to the style. And just to kind of show you a little deeper about how this works here. So let me go to root. So I will add in a style block here, which will be passed up into the bundle since I'm not declaring keep. And I'll just say body is margin 0 and background of light cyan. Sure, that's probably an unoffensive color. So you can see here that this is passed up, and that I have a body tag and UL tag. All right, so take a look real quickly at ways you can sort of handle CSS and how this is passed up here. So first of all, let's take a look at actually how this is bundled. So this one has this component on it, so this is bundled up. I do not call this component from one of these articles, so if I go in here to the article, you'll see that that class is not declared. So that's interesting, right? Basically, it's passing up only the styles it needs directly to the head. In a lot of contexts, that's actually probably what you want. You just want it to be the smallest total file size possible, and that's what you're going to get. if you want to say, one of the things you can do with web components, and if you work with web components you know this, and if not, it's usually easy to scope them. So basically you can say like, oh, I want that style, that UL. So if I use the UL elsewhere, right, it's still going to make that UL green even if I don't want it to, because I didn't give it a proper definition. So you can automatically give things classes. So if I go here and I say webc scoped, okay, then the way it saves this out, if I go look here, it saves it as a class, a unique class name. This comes from a hash of the actual content, UL background green. So then it will only apply to these, and you can guess here that this collection list attribute has a class attached to it. So that would be a reason why we'd want to keep these, right? Before we did this, we really didn't need this collection list attribute. We could have said webc no keep and got it to go away. But now we actually need it because we're trying to scope these. So in this case, I'll leave this like it is, just so we can see here the feature. But that's a really cool way to handle stuff. Similarly with scripts, you can't quite do the fancy thing with scripts where you would want to load it up and you know, conditionally load it, etc. What you would want to do here is there's alternative ways to load JavaScript, but it will work in the simplest context here. So if I just say like hi from collection list, some people like to do these on components just so you know they're loaded. If we go take a look at the console here, you can see that in fact it did load. If we go to this article, we would expect that's not on here, which it is not. So that works as well. Simply, we're not going to go too deeply into JavaScript because this is not a JavaScript programming course. However, that is the way that works in general. One more thing we want to take a look at before we leave is you can actually say here, instead of just get bucket, get bundle, you can give it which specific bundle. So I could say this is head, right? And this isn't default now, so now like I can pass code specifically into this. So like if I save here, you can see that my it may be by default. Oh yeah, styles. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so styles disappeared because they're no longer being bundled up. I could say this if I go here to collections. I could say webc. It's not webc scope. It's webc bucket is, what did I call it? Head. Yeah, so you can see now it comes back. So this is a good way if you get into really complex CSS, or you just want to kind of control where it's loaded. You load the hot path CSS in the head. This is a very common tactic on heavily used sites to kind of limit the amount of CSS that's loaded prior to page rendering. So if you want to get in here and do this, it's a great idea. Like definitely have critical path CSS. You can create a critical path bundle in the head. I do this with JavaScript all the time, right? So all my default JavaScript flows to the bottom. And then I have one in the head. So I shouldn't have actually used this example. I believe if I save this too, it's okay. So it is not backwards compatible. It does try to write to the specific bucket, which is good because I did try to write to a specific bucket. But I always add one of these too, which is basically to have this. So if I have specific code that needs to be loaded in the head, analytics, things like that, I can create a head loader as well to load files. And the very last thing we'll talk about is the bundler plugin. If you want to go here and actually look at the information around it, you can do all kinds of stuff here by default. It's just loaded into, I believe it's part of included in webc. Is why it is, but you can do all kinds of neat stuff, and it's worth taking a look at. One of the things though that's really useful is instead of writing get bundle, you can use get bundle file URL. So if you have cases where, say, I'll give you a really good example. So if I have like some framework code and I want to include the entirety of Bootstrap or something like that, right? That may be something you'd want to include off a CDN because somebody might already have it. But in general, what I might want to do is have that separated out and then compress it. And then insert it somewhere else later. So I want to do post processing. I want to run post CSS. That's a very popular thing. That's something you can use get bundle file URL for to basically extract code and then process it after you have then rendered the site. Now we're going to start taking a look at some plugins, specifically first-party plugins that are maintained and supported officially by Eleventy. The first thing we're going to take a look at, we really won't use, but I mentioned it in passing earlier, so it's important to talk about. This is a really useful piece if you need to do more sophisticated loading of JavaScript. So it's called island, and basically what this allows is a WebC component called is-land. And you can create a bunch of directives on it to control how it's loaded. So if you're wanting to do more sophisticated JavaScript, or for instance reaching out to an application framework like Svelte, or a terrible piece of crap like React, then you are, this is probably a really good way to do this, including, there's ways to load, as you see here, on visible, on idle, on media. So you can set a media query. It's really interesting. There's a lot you can do with this, and this is also, and here we go. There's an init type, and Svelte is something that is supported. So this is what's called hydration, which essentially is loading the DOM and JavaScript for a component, and this is a really great built-in thing that works really well with Eleventy and with WebC. I'm going to install a couple plugins. We'll take a look at this, but I want to install two that are actually included and shipped with the service first that I almost always put on every site that I work on. First of which is ID attribute plugin. And the second one is called input path to URL transform plugin. So what these two things do, ID attribute basically gives an ID to every header, so you can link to it directly. It's highly customizable. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff. I usually just leave it as is, but there's actually potentially some accessibility problems if you don't handle some cases. So it's worth taking a look at the documentation. Import path to URL transform plugin. Essentially what this allows you is to do local paths when you link to things, and it will set up the URLs correctly, so it makes development life a little bit easier for you. And in this case, we will Eleventy config add attribute, and we will, I believe that's correct. Repeat the main thing attribute. Okay, so we'll save those. And then if we go back, you can see here in our social links, we should have an ID on these. Yeah, so ID social links. So then if I want to link to that, right, I can go here and say social links. So that's really useful in the sense of, I don't know what I did there, but that's really useful in the sense when you want to link to like a piece of documentation and you have a lot of headers, could be very useful to have that. The one plugin that I will install and will actually take a quick look at, but you definitely need to spend some time with the documentation if you're going to use this on your own. This is a very, what I would consider a heavyweight plugin. This is going to take your, in most cases, your build from a quarter of a second to 5 seconds. This is going to be the one that does it. So let's go ahead and install bun I, and this is also in Eleventy, and it is called Eleventy IMG. So Eleventy Image is a program that does a lot of stuff to your images. You need to probably go read it and make sure you understand what it does, because it can lead to some unintended consequences perhaps if you don't understand how to use it. But it is really, really useful. It does a lot of things for your images. It doesn't make you kind of micromanage. If you want to create, really complicated setups around, responsive imagery and things like that, that's going to be really, really useful for you. All right, let's install Eleventy Image now. We'll get the basics set up. So you can import Eleventy. Always type that first, because then you can actually just it knows what you're doing. Image transform plugin. So then to set this up, the image transform plugin. All right. And I always pass in a couple things almost every single time. So sharp options. Sharp is one of the optimizers. I think it compiles WebP and some other stuff. I always wanted to make sure that when it's doing formats, either WebP or GIF, that it enables animation on it. Otherwise it will dump the first scale and optimize for file size, which you do not want in that case. So we definitely want to support animations with Sharp. And one thing I always do, because I use SVG pretty extensively, I make sure that SVG is a supported format, and I do SVG. And we'll go ahead and we'll also add JPEG. I think it's JPG and not JPEG. Let's see. All right, let's try to run this dev server now. All right, and did we, okay, so we have these. So let's go to this gallery real quick and see, I forget what we changed it to. Is it /photos? Photos, all right. So we have these here. Let's go ahead and just inspect real quick. You can see that, yeah, for now it's holding it here in kind of limbo in the development server. If you go here, you can't actually find it in the site. It's actually kind of hidden in Eleventy, like where it can only really see in its cache area. But you still see the photos from where they were before. And if we do a build, so let's go ahead and run. We haven't done one of these in a while, but run build. You can see that these images are transformed. And if you go to the site, we will look at photos. Yeah, you can see all of the transforms here. So these images have been optimized. The ones I've got are probably pretty good, but these are useful if you kind of don't want to micromanage your images, and if you have a blog, you want to make sure that everything is the same size, or you have certain sizes to do certain things. This is a really, really useful tool. One thing to know about maybe while we're in here, I just saw, is this upgrade helper. This is really useful. So if you do a major version upgrade, you can install this upgrade helper, and it will give you a whole bunch of warnings to help you fix the site and upgrade to the new major version. If you are going to use APIs, a lot of people really like to use it through this fetch. So some people kind of go to the next level and essentially create a static site out of WordPress using Eleventy. Totally possible to do that. You're going to want to interact with the API. That is probably not a case where you're going to DDoS yourself locally, but there are things where you do have to worry about whether the server is there, whether you're pinging the server. You need to have a cached asset to deal with. Fetch is really, really useful, so I definitely would check this out if you're going to be working with any third-party APIs. as or even your own APIs as you're constructing your site. Alright, so there's a bunch of third-party plugins. They're not all listed here. I'm not really even sure. I think you got to come on here and maybe edit this site on GitHub to get them on here. But there are a lot of them, and if you do a search on npm for Eleventy packages, I believe they've done that here for you, Eleventy-plugin, they will come up. This is how they've asked people to name. So there's lots of plugins here. I can't vouch for any of them. Some of them are very popular. But I would not vouch for any of them, and I would urge you to at least take a look at the code and make sure you understand what they're doing before you would decide to rely heavily upon them. The last thing we'll cover here is how to actually get your site set up for indieweb. So indiewebify.me is going to give you the basics of how to do it. We're going to go through, and we'll talk about 1 and 2. First one, get your domain name. If you haven't done that, you need to do that. You can use, you can use a third-party domain. You can use NeoCities or something like that. But it really makes sense, I think, if you're going to do indieweb, you really need to get a domain name as an identifier that you have, complete control over. Set up web sign-in. The core of this is that you set up certain logins with public information that basically links back to the site. So just to show you here, I'll show you with my personal site, web.dev. So if I do a search here, you can see that I've added rel me links to both Blue Sky. I don't know why it says it does not link back. I'm going to have to look into why that is. It may be some of my profile settings, or GitHub, which does work correctly. And what I've done here is I've set a link. If I go to github.com/homosor, you can see that I've linked to womb.dev, and basically this ensures that I can use this to set control. So when I go to an indieweb application, I can log in with this website, and it goes through and uses my GitHub login for authentication. Really, really cool. The second part of it is making sure that all your stuff is set up via micro formats, specifically hcard and hentry. So all of your blog entries, anything that's going to go in your feeds, you need to make sure to set them up with hentry. This little app will walk you through it. Really cool to check out micro formats too in general. Extremely useful to try to use micro formats when you can. They do all kinds of interesting stuff. There's some zero-click SEO features if you set up rich data with micro formats. So I highly recommend you at least look into that. Try to get that set up. And then what I like to do, so for web mentions, you can set up a piece of software online to kind of do these, to where if you mention another indie website, then you basically want to kind of do like a link back to them. And you can mark up a this is in reply to this thing, right? And you can do that, and if you do a mention, or if you link to another blog, you can actually do that via service. So I like to use a command line tool for this specifically. The link is here, maybe in web mentions. Webmention.app, that's it. So this is the one I like to use. So to install this, just to show you here how easy this is, you can have a indie website that is connected to the indieweb, but it doesn't have to be online. You don't have to have a fancy server and all this kind of stuff. We will install a package remi/webmention. All right. And then what I'm going to do here is create a, I did skip one piece, which I almost always do from my own sites. I wasn't going to show you this, but you need to go create a RSS feed. There is a plugin that is very, very easy to use, first-party Eleventy plugin called RSS here, and all you really have to do is give it some information, and you give it a collection. So if you want to create one feed, or you want to create a dozen feeds, really easy to create them once you have collections. And then what you can go do is you hook that RSS up to your your local web mention by doing this. So you go into package.json and you do this build to say web mention site fee.xml, and send this out. So any web mentions you do, are then going to go to the service and try to link out to the websites. And if they have capacity to receive web mentions, then they can, thread them or whatever they want to do. That's kind of the third step of indieweb, and it's definitely way beyond the scope of what we're covering here. But the first two steps are the most important, which is that you can tell people that you're interacting with them, and that you can log in with your website and use it as a piece of identity. So thank you very much for spending some time looking at this. I'm glad you're interested in building websites and owning some content. I will link below to some projects. I have a kind of offline tutorial as well that you can step through on Git if you don't want to learn via video, like a person that is not damaged by the internet. Otherwise, yeah, enjoy Eleventy, make some websites, make some cool stuff, and hit me up on Blue Sky at edmon.zip, edmon.zip is my name, and hit me up and we can talk indieweb anytime. See ya.